What is up guys, welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and today I'm taking you over a really insane $1,000 gaming PC build for 2018. If 1440p gaming is really what you're after, this build hits the sweet spot. Before we jump into some benchmarks and performance figures, make sure to smash that like button and get subscribed if you aren't already with notifications turned on. But let's look at some frame rates. Now in terms of 1080p, you're looking ultra settings in excess of 60 frames per second, so a really solid gaming experience. Dialing it up to 4K, and equally it's an impressive affair, and though some of the details and settings Dialing it up to 4K, it's an equally impressive affair, though some settings will need to be dialed down just slightly to maintain some really solid frame rates. Either way, whether it's 1080 or 1440p, you are not going to be disappointed. Let's dive into the parts I chose for this build and why I chose them, and kick it off as always with the CPU. The AMD Ryzen 5 2600X sits at the top end of AMD's brand new Ryzen Plus, Ryzen Gen 2 lineup of 5 series processors. With 6 cores and 12 threads, it's got some fantastic, seriously incredible multi-threaded performance for the price point. And with a base clock of 3.6 and boost of up to 4.2 GHz, the single-threaded performance is also ticked nicely. Newer titles which take advantage of a heavy multi-threaded workload will love this chip, and in equal measure games such as CSGO, World of Warcraft, League of Legends, which are more poorly optimised and only like fast single-threaded performance, aren't being let down either. To really further this chip's appeal, you have an RGB Wraithspire stock cooler included free of charge that even gives you some overclocking leverage on this low 65 watt TDP CPU. All in all, you can't go too far wrong, and I'll put links to all the parts both in the description and in the card section here. For the motherboard in this build, I went for the MSI B350M MORTAR, and now the B350 chipset is really where it's at for a gaming PC that costs under $1,500, under $1,700, with support for overclocking, 4 RAM DIMM slots for good upgradability and future-proofing, PCI-E 3.0 for the GPU, USB-C and an M.2 storage slot. You can't go wrong whatsoever. It's a nicely designed motherboard in a fairly compact M.2 form factor that strikes a perfect balance between price to performance, cost to functionality, all that good stuff. For the memory in this build, for the RAM, I went for ADATA's brand new Spectrix D41. Now I went for 16GB, which is the sweet spot for 1440p gaming in 2018, though not to worry, the upgrade paths are open. If you wanted 32GB of RAM, which would be plain overkill, I warn you right now, you can just pick another identical kit up and slot it into the spare slots. Furthering on the ADATA initial D40 RGB memory kit, this improves the design by no end, with a nicely diffused addressable RGB strip up top that works directly through the RAM DIMM, no additional cables required or any of that good stuff. For the storage in this build, I went for a hard drive, specifically Seagate's Barracuda in a 2TB capacity. With a 7200 RPM speed, it's as fast as your mainstream consumer hard drives tend to get. In a 3.5-inch standard form factor, these things for me have proven to be really reliable. I've never had a single problem with any of them. Whilst an M.2 SSD or SATA SSD would be a great upgrade later on down the line for faster Windows boot up times, it just isn't financially viable in this budget at the moment. Pricing volatilities in RAM and GPU components really haven't given much leeway for fast storage that isn't actually going to improve your gaming performance. Hence, 2000 gigs at fairly quick storage is going to be more than enough for your movies, music, games, Origin and Steam libraries. For the graphics card in this build, I went for the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060, notably the more powerful 6GB model. This one specifically is from MSI and boasts a really nice double large fan cooler. With overclocking already dealt with out of the box and headroom for even more, it's a really impressive card. It's power efficient, suits the aesthetic perfectly, and is shown off really nicely in the vertical GPU mount you can see here. With really solid display output options, a solid build quality and really nice looking backplate, you can't go wrong with this NVIDIA GTX 1060. For the case in this build, for the penultimate part, I opted for the Corsair Spec-06. Now sitting as one of the latest additions to their carbide spec, more budget oriented case lineup, this chassis has really impressed me. I did a review on launch, which you can find in the CAD section here, and that went down really well. Someone really summarised it better than I could. It's the new NZX TS340 with RGB, and I couldn't agree more. With a really nicely evenly diffused addressable RGB strip at the front, a solid ATX design with power supply shield, good drive mounting options, and RGB illumination in either white or black, you can't go wrong with this chassis from Corsair. For the final part in this build, this one's probably the least interesting for many of you, but it's equally as important. Cooler Master's Masterwatt 650 features an 80+ certification, bronze specifically, which guarantees efficiency over 80% at all times. It's also got a semi-modular interface, meaning you only plug in the additional cables you need, alongside a quiet operation, really good warranty, and fairly small form factor. With individually black sleeve cables, it also looks a lot better than many other comparatively priced power supplies, and whilst you shouldn't be going overkill on a PSU, you do need to get one from a reputable manufacturer with an 80+ certification. But details aside, that just about wraps it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, smash that like button, subscribe for more, hit me up on the social media channels on your screen here, enjoy the end montage, and as always, we'll see you in the next GeekaWhat video.